Hey, so I just wanted to follow up with some further information in regards to the infographic I posted on the ramp warm-up protocols, specifically the M for mobilization. I got a few questions surrounding that. So I believe I described mobilization as taking your joints through a dynamic range, not to statically stretch. Okay, so this is going to shock a fair few people, but static stretching prior to any exercise is going to impair human performance. And that's not a subjective statement. I'm going to go over some of the research and literature surrounding stretching and its effects on performance, flexibility, and injury prevention. Okay, so stretching and its effects on performance, let's cover that. So we know static stretching has no effect on the muscle structures, muscle stiffness, or muscle contractions. What it does do is it manipulates the neurological system, okay? So specifically the motor cortex, which is responsible for planning, controlling, and executing movements. So when we statically stretch, we see a decrease in the strength of the signal from the motor cortex to the muscles, telling them to contract. Inside our muscles, we have muscle spindles. Their role is to detect changes in length of the muscle tissues. And when we statically stretch, we alter the length of those muscle spindles, and then we see a decrease in velocity from the signaling of those spindles to the central nervous system. Okay, so basically static stretching dampens the strength and velocity of signals in the nervous system, which if you want to produce force, it's pretty significant. So this study from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that maximal strength decreased after static stretching, and ballistic stretches did not negatively affect maximal strength. Okay, so static stretching negatively affected maximal strength. Ballistic stretches did not. Okay, what about endurance sports? So this other study, published in 2014, concluded that static stretching decreased performance in short endurance bouts by about 8%. Okay, so marathon runners have also been studied to see negative performance effects from incorporating static stretching into their warm-ups also. So stretching and its effects on injury. So does incorporating stretching in warm-ups have any effect on injury prevention? Well, mostly no, but maybe yes. So on the screen is a systematic review published in 2008 that reviewed relevant stretch studies from 1990 to 2008. So the main factor in stretching and its possible positive effects on injury prevention is basically its ability to increase the range of the muscles and the joints to meet the demands of the sport, okay? But we do know that static stretching increases the compliance of muscular tendinous structures, which negatively affects the stretch shortening cycle mechanism that we rely on when we are performing sports. So, to produce high rates of force, we need tendon rigidity. And when we stretch, we dampen the tendon's ability to store and release elastic energy. Okay, so you would be better to, and that could potentially then lead to injury if you're dampening your body's ability to meet the demands of the sport. A little bit of food for thought, but so you would be better to gain the necessary range that your muscles and joints require, that is required of your sport, through dynamic and ballistic stretches. As we said above, they had no negative effects on performance as well. That way you do not, you get the positive benefits of your muscles and joints can meet the demands of sport without the performance decrease. Okay. So stretching and its effects on flexibility. So we do know that stretching obviously positively affects flexibility, as seen in this systematic review from 2015, which concluded that static stretching was effective in increasing hamstring flexibility in healthy young adults. but we do know the effects are not long lasting and should be applied to a movement that will actively use the range and full length of those muscles and joints. That way we ingrain that motor pattern into our motor cortex, and basically if you don't use it, you lose it, okay? So we're trying to teach that skill, and if you're utilizing a joint and muscle in its full range, then there's no need to static stretch, okay? You know, as discussed earlier, stretching manipulates the neurological system, not the muscular system. So stretching a muscle by itself will have very temporary effects. We need to manipulate the neurological system in order for those effects, those stretch effects, lengthening of muscle tissues, to be long lasting. So we need to stretch if you need to, and then apply it to an active movement, and then teach that motor pattern in that full joint and muscle range. Okay, does that make sense? So if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Just keep that in mind. So this doesn't mean don't stretch ever either. So I've prescribed countless times to clients of mine static stretching paired with a movement that requires the full range of the muscles and joints that we're trying to improve the range of. So that way we're stretching, and then we're applying it to a movement, and then that gets ingrained in our motor cortex, and then you know, if we keep using it, then we're not going to lose it, and we don't need to static stretch anymore and get the negative effects that come with static stretching. But there are obviously positive effects outside of performance and injury prevention that static stretches have. You know, stretching feels good. Like, oh, trained chest yesterday, and stretching like this feels good, man. So, you know, do yoga, static stretch if you want to static stretch, but just keep in mind everything that we've discussed so far, okay? So if you want to stretch, shit, you can stretch. That's pretty much it. So that'll do for me for now. Thank you for watching. If you like this style of video, let me know. I really enjoyed putting this together, so I'm probably just going to post more whether you like it or not. But thanks for watching. See you in the next video.